Okay, I think that we have most locations. We're very lucky tonight to have all four locations that are participating in DataJam mentor training. Pittsburgh, Caldwell in New Jersey, San Francisco State in the Bay Area, but also UCSD as their semester has started, and they have been listening to the videotaped versions of the classes we've had, and they have written DataJam proposals. So I have my screen open to the folder for assignment 5 proposals, and you'll see there are 14 proposals, which is very exciting. This is the largest number of mentors we've had working on something before. We've had other universities participating, but it was really exciting to see a whole lot of you doing this. We're going to spend the first hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, having you present what your proposal is about. And I think I've sent a couple emails about this. Each group that presents, we can open their document here and project it, but you also have your computers in front of you. You'll be able to look at it much more carefully, I think, if you just open it in the folder. And I have renamed all the proposals so it has people's names, so that, because we want to start to get to know each other, and they're easier to identify who knows who Pit Team 1 or Pit Team 3 is. But when you see the names and you have a whole roster of people that are involved in the class in the folders. So you want to be able to explain what your topic is, what your hypothesis is, your data set, and then what you envision doing. Think about taking about 5 minutes for this. And it would really be good if you take maybe 4 minutes and we have a minute or two of discussion or questions to go with it. But that way you all will be aware of what other people are working on and where things are going well for them and things are not. I'm hoping that we can just start the discussion tonight with Jessica and Dia at Caldwell University. And I think I see you guys on. Yes, there you are. You're both on.
Yes. Hello.
Good. I had a super exciting interaction with them last night, and I'm going to let them tell you what they did. But I think the end conclusion was something that all of you are going to want to think about, because they were having trouble finding data sets. We got some assistance with that, and they were pointed towards a lot of data sets. So how did that happen? So Dia and Jessica, I'm going to open your proposal, but do you want to talk?
Yeah, I think Jessica's mic is having some problems, so I'll be talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Our topic for the project is what is the correlation between the use of cosmetics containing certain chemicals like fragrances, parabens, and skin sensitivity reports. We did say worldwide, but the data we found wasn't worldwide. We kind of had a confusion between what we wanted to choose. So we found data for California and we found data for 5 European countries. And thanks to Professor Judy and Beth, they helped us find a very defined databases for our research. Beth is a senior data analyst located in New Jersey, And she mentioned that she used ChatGPT to find a very detailed database for us. Some of the database, let me tell you guys some of the exact database. One was cosmetic ingredient review database. Since we're working on cosmetic ingredients, this was very helpful in our data finding important data sets. Other was European Chemicals Agency database. This was again, since we have our options for European or California data, we decided we wanted to go for the European chemical European database because we found a significant amount of data on that topic. But yeah, we found really defined database with the help of Miss Judy and Beth, thanks to them. Again, moving on to our hypothesis, we think that the use of cosmetics containing certain chemicals, such as fragrance and other allergens, is positively correlated with the increase in skin sensitivity reports. We also have found significant variables like paraben concentration, fragrance concentration, sulfate concentration, similarly, age group, gender, and five different European countries, how it's divided. Again, cosmetics is a huge industry, so we also are working on the exposure frequency, like how much you're using those cosmetics, and the product type, like is it a leave-on cosmetic or a rinse-off cosmetic, and the concentration of how much chemicals are involved in those cosmetics. So yeah, so far those are the findings we have gotten.
Wonderful. What got me really excited last night was they said, do you have an idea of where we can find databases? They'd found European ones, but were having a little trouble with the databases in the US. I had no idea. It was way out of my domain of knowledge. And I contacted Beth Bauer, who is a member of the DataJam board of directors. And she has worked for her whole career in the pharmaceutical industry. She owns her own company now. But I thought, well, she probably knows a lot about groups that look at chemical composition. And she surprisingly turned this around and sent back a list of 6 potential databases in like 10 minutes. I was like, whoa. Because I thought it was a long shot she would know this. It was a long shot that she would know it. She didn't know it. What she said she did was use ChatGPT and ask the question about databases. And I've been thinking a lot about using ChatGPT, as I've mentioned in this class before, for getting guidance on how to use analytical programs. But it did not occur to me to look for databases that way. And I thought it was brilliant. She thought it was a really easy solution. But I wanted to make sure we highlighted this and that all of you heard it, because the most difficult problem for teams, and it doesn't matter what level they're at high school, at college, for you, is finding databases. And this is a very speedy way that could really help you. And I expect that you will probably, every single one of you, use it to help the teams you're guiding this year find appropriate databases. So I thought this was just a wonderful learning experience. So thank you, Jessica and Dia. I'm gonna have to get back here again. Who would like to go next? And
Okay,
I
go
think it would
next.
be great if we rotate through locations. Do we have a volunteer?
Yeah, we can go
you
next.
can go.
Okay, tell me who you are.
The
Safos
first one,
and Grace.
Adrian and John from SFSU.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, can you guys see me?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
you.
so my partner is sick today, so he's gonna go through Zoom. So it's just me today. So our project title is Analyzing the Gender Pay Gap in Income Levels. And our research question is what are the key factors that contribute to the gender pay gap in income, particularly in determine whether an individual's income is above or below 50,000 per year. And we thought this was interesting because we believe in equality, and if the same people are doing the same exact job, I believe, regardless of gender, that they should get paid the same. So we hypothesize that gender, alongside other socioeconomic factors, plays a significant role in determining whether an individual earns above or below 50,000 per year. Especially, we expect to find that men have a higher probability of earning above 50,000 compared to women, even when accounting for other variables such as education, work hours, and occupation. And for our analysis plan, we are thinking of removing missing values and handle categorical data using data cleaning and pre-processing. We will use pandas for that. And for our modeling approach, we're going to do machine learning, something in supervised learning like decision trees and random forests. And with that, we will analyze feature importance to identify which factors can contribute to most income disparities. And
Nice.
that is
So
it.
tell us about the adult income data set. I don't know
Oh,
what that is.
I'm so sorry. I forgot the most invaluable part. So we will use this adult income data set that we found on Kaggle, and it basically tells us that the demographics such as age, education, occupation, and income levels between men and women.
Wonderful. Any questions? And I'll open the chat. So if people that are online want to put questions in chat, which somebody may have, okay.
I have one thing to add.
Yeah,
We're on the same team. So for us, the data set, it's for the income levels, it'll be above or below 50K. So we don't have the exact number, like how much money they make. We only have the level. So we will script it, make it look like okay, so if it's above 50K, it'll be like ones, and if it's below 50K, it'll be zeros. So by using logistic regression, we will find the probability of people making either above 50K or below 50K. And for like tree-based methods, we could find the feature importance of like whatever columns we have.
nice. This sounds very good. And Kaggle is an incredibly good source for finding data sets. So good job. Why don't we move on to another team? And maybe we could have a team in San Diego. Is there a group in San Diego that would like to go?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, who is this?
I'm Tejas. It's kind of scrolling I think you have to go a little bit down. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I saw your name here somewhere.
It should be like Shreya, Konda, and then Tejas Mani.
Ah, here we go. Very good.
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't believe my partner's in the call right now, but that's all right. So I'll
That's
go.
okay.
So yeah, so our project title is The Race and Types of Police Action During Vehicle Stops in San Diego. So our overall research question is, are different races affected disproportionately by police stops depending on the type of police action or violation, specifically during San Diego vehicle stops? And this data comes from, I believe, 2017 onwards. So our kind of background is obviously there have been in the last couple of years, more concerns about racial bias in policing, especially at the national and local level. So many people believe that police happen to target certain races more disproportionately. And then these concerns have fueled increased efforts to like analyze police behavior. And a really good place that we can do that in is at traffic stops where bias tends to be a little more prevalent than we think. So our project aims to kind of look at this intersection and explore whether in San Diego specifically, different racial groups experience different traffic stops differently and kind of look at the police actions. So what they do and then the types of violations that happen. So our current hypothesis is that the difference in police stops based on race and the type of police action or violation is not due to chance. And then our alternative would be the opposite. The data comes from San Diego government data that's released publicly, and we're focusing on police vehicle stops. So that data kind of, just to give a brief overview of the data set, contains the stop ID, the stop cause, like the service area or like zip code of San Diego that it's in, and then information about the subject. So race, sex, age, the time that they're pulled over, whether they're whether they're a resident, whether they were arrested, and obviously the action that was taken by the police. So yeah, our analysis plan, we're kind of being told in our San Diego class to use Excel and Google Sheets just so that we can get familiar with it. I know a lot of like data science practice stuff that we use doesn't really focus on that. So we're trying to get our skills up there in case the high school students that we're mentoring only have knowledge of Excel or Google Sheets. So we're going to be using that.
That's great.
Yeah.
A large percentage of the schools, especially the underserved schools, are going to use Google Sheets and Excel. So good job.
So we plan to kind of filter the data set first based on race originally, since that's our primary column, and then observe correlations between different reported violations. So after we like kind of go through that initial stage, we plan to use the multiple other factors in the data set. So that has to do with like service area, gender, and then another thing we were thinking about is that the date that they were arrested in, maybe, I don't know, there's like a conception that police kind of have to meet a quota at the end of the month. So maybe kind of looking at those dates and seeing if something's going on there. And then we can kind of use like, we were planning on like pivot tables in Excel to kind of visualize it. Also using like regression maybe to see kind of what variables are correlating with each other. And yeah, that's our overall plan.
Terrific. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Let's have a Pittsburgh group. Go ahead. Let me see if I can get back here easily. No. Okay, you guys had both a Word document. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's not right. Huh. Okay, go ahead.
So we wanted to look into rates of service for domestic abuse survivors by gender, because there has been recent evidence showing that domestic abuse can happen approximately 50-50 in genders, but getting help or having a place to escape to, specifically housing and transitionary homes, are much less prevalent for men. And a lot of the gender stereotyping in the organizations that provide the housing tend to drive men seeking housing away. So we wanted to look into rates of servicing for both genders compared to rates of physical or psychological domestic abuse. We had data sources from the CDC, which reports the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey. So that's where we got our data on how many people report sexual or psychological violence. And then we also have data from the domesticshelters.org, which is an organization that gets reporting from about half of the domestic shelter organizations in the US for our services provided information. We plan to use RStudio to upload, clean, tidier data as necessary, and then try and do some linear regression or multiple regression for comparing the availability of support to rates of prevalence.
So does the CDC data set have all locations that offer support?
It has by state.
It has it by state. Because if there's underreporting of services for men, I would immediately worry that in the data sets there would be underreporting of services for men. And
It's not
so,
necessarily underreporting of services, it's just that the services aren't being rendered.
oh, okay.
And so that it was required by federal law that all of these shelters be gender inclusive.
Okay.
But we still aren't seeing, like, the national average for rates of non-reporting have dropped. Rates of non-reporting of violence for men has dropped from about 50% to about 20%, which means that people are
reporting it more.
and are looking for help. But we wanted to look at, since people are now looking for help, are they actually getting help?
Okay.
So we wanted to look at the services rendered data versus the reporting rate to compare that information.
Nice. Any questions about this one? I love that we have quite a variety of topics. This is fantastic. Okay, how about another team from Caldwell?
Yeah, I can go.
Who's this?
Pralosh. So the
Okay,
team is Pralosh and Suman.
okay, here we go. Great.
Yeah, so we chose a project on trends in international students by places of origin at US colleges. So we chose this problem because we ourselves are international students and we wanted to see what kind of trends have been going on around the US colleges and what policy changes has been affecting the intake of those students. Since this is like this international intake students does not just affect United States, it's like a global wide situation where students do seek international knowledge or like other colleges outside of their country to just give me one second. Yeah, so this question we thought it was important because finding patterns and trends intake of international students will help us see how the geopolitical and economic changes has affected the students. And international students are also a big source of income for United States or any other country in general. The hypothesis we came up with is there is a diversity of international students coming from East Asia to all the way from North and South continents. And there will be an upward trend in intake of international students if the policy changes do help students get better, easier visas or easier scholarships. And the data set we found was from Kaggle. So this data set that we have has data from 1949 to 2022. So it's a lot of data for us.
It's a lot of data.
Yeah, it's a lot of data to look into. So we should not be short on data like before. But this time, yeah, we're not going to use Python because we used it last time. This time we're going to do Excel, so we would use probably the charts that are in Excel and then use pivot tables, regression to find out any correlation between policy changes and how it affects intake of international students. Yeah, and that's everything.
Wonderful. That's very good. So it looked like in your hypothesis, the you're saying the diversity, your hypothesis is the diversity has increased over the years with significant shifts corresponding to global events and policy changes. So you not only need data on the number of international students being accepted or having their education at each college that you look at, you would need to look at policy too. Do you have data sets? Does that data set have anything about policy changes in it?
This does not have any policy changes data on in that data set, but we will try to see because the policy for international students, I don't think it changes quite often on the visas and stuff until it's like a critical issue. And since the countries are now, the global power is shifting as there's rise of countries like India and China. So students would want to go to other countries besides United States. And we're trying to see what policy changes would they implement, those rising countries, and what United States could do to their own policy to
So you're going to look at the trends in different colleges in different countries and then kind of look for news on policy changes? Is that what you're going to do?
So we are going to first look at the trends in United States and see what kind of international student, how diverse the international students are, and based on their trends, we'll look into their country's policy, how their
Ah.
development or how their country's policy has changed, which has led them,
I get it.
how
Okay, so if there was an increase in students coming from India, you would look to see, has the policy in India changed that's allowed more? I get it, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds very exciting. Any questions on this one? Very nice. Okay, how about somebody from San Francisco? They're running forward.
Okay, sorry. We're down under Garcia, Hodgkinson, and Jagabatuni.
Okay.
My view more, yeah, all the way at the bottom below that. So if you
I don't know why I'm having trouble. What? Oh, view more. Here
Yeah.
we go. Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, I don't know why.
Oh, let me just read.
Why. Let me try again here.
It has a Zoom link.
I mean, you can always read it up in post office.
Okay, here we go. It was giving me all sorts of things. Okay,
Oh.
Garcia, here we go. This is you?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
One of our group members isn't here, but she is involved. So we just basically we're kind of unhappy with where exactly San Francisco has spent all of its infrastructure on cycling. And we wanted to show it statistically. So if you could go ahead and scroll down. Do you want to just like read the background? I feel like the background has everything that we talked about.
Yeah, so basically we want to see like in the eastern and southern parts of the city, there are there's like less infrastructure for cycling, and there's more of that in downtown city, in the downtown parts of the city, and we want to compare how many like crashes are occurring in either parts of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Specifically, relative to the reported census like bike commuters, because while there are more crashes downtown because of a higher volume of commuters, we feel that like the relative proportion of crashes to commuters is still higher in the areas with less infrastructure. And we'd like
So
to-
are you going to have a way of looking at the number of commuters or the number of businesses in a particular area or something?
Yes, we have a lot of data on this one actually. San Francisco has a lot of
Okay.
data. They have so the ACS, the American Community Survey, they have per tracked data on the number of people who commute via bike.
Nice.
And then we have pedestrian fatalities. There's basically a crash map maintained by the Transportation Information Management something run through Berkeley, I think. They have longitude, latitude, like crash data on cyclist accidents from cars. And we can also query like, so it's only cyclists being hit by cars and not just like cyclists hitting pedestrians, things like that. And then if you could scroll, I think we have a lot more data than that.
Okay. And oh, yeah, you sure do. Wonderful.
yeah, we just have like the network map that shows us like where there is bike lanes and where some streets are like closed off for only residential, like people that live there, and you know, they're like slower speed limits, stuff like that. And then we have the
counts too.
which one is that
The
one?
map of the bike volume counts, that's the one where they're mostly downtown.
Oh, right. And then we also have oh, that's like the slow streets one. And then we have just like some more like income and demographic data as well. And then geocoding for the location, like usually we have to do.
So this is fantastic. Are most of these data sets reported using a similar system of dividing things up? Are they reported by zip code, or how are they reported?
Good question. Most of those have longitude and latitudes associated or
Oh,
spatial.
nice.
Yeah. And so we coded them for that. And then I believe all of it is within a 4 or 5 year period is what we queried for all of the sets that we could. Yeah.
Well, that sounds wonderful. You will have a much better sense of the bicycle situation and where it's safe to bike in San Francisco. That's great. Do you want to talk briefly about your analytical plan?
Yeah, so we're gonna go and use Tableau to use the map of San Francisco and kind of create like a, you know, like a way of analyzing like where like injuries are occurring and where there is more infrastructure, things like that.
Yeah. And then we can easily just heat map the demographics on it. We just have to learn how to do that.
Nice. The Tableau is actually fantastic for that. It's really good. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah. And then we're using Excel because we already used R.
Yeah.
So
Or Google Sheets as well.
yeah, one of the two.
Good, good. This is wonderful. Any questions? Okay, San Diego.
I can do it. Thank
Okay,
you.
who is this?
Sunny and Fiona.
Okay. Here you are.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So we basically want to exploring the impact of linguistic isolation on economic outcome in San Diego. So the reason is because we find an interesting data set and it's called like Living Well San Diego. And it basically lists out like 10 like factors of like for example like smoking or median household income or like commuter times, and we found one factor is very interesting, which is the linguistic isolation. And a definition for it is basically uh, the percentage of household who don't have like an English speaker in their home. So we want to know if that will affect like how the economic outcomes of this household. So that's why we make the hypothesis. Like so our research question is like how does in linguistic isolation impact economic outcomes for non-speak English speaking household in San Diego? And our hypothesis is basically the household in San Diego who are linguistically isolated will have like lower median household income and higher unemployment rates and other like lower rates of access to financial resources. And so our plan is basically we will pull out the data and we will do like a correlational analysis and to see if there are any like correlation between these variables.
So I'm interested that you're using the terminology linguistically isolated. I don't know San Diego very well, but I know a lot more about the Los Angeles area and the San Francisco area. And there are non-English speaking kind of neighborhoods where many people don't speak English, but they interact a lot among themselves. They may all be Vietnamese, or they may all be Korean, or they may all be Hispanic. And so I wouldn't have necessarily used the terminology linguistically isolated. I wonder if the situation in San Diego is different and it's more intermixed than in these other cities on the West Coast.
I think so. Basically, it's like one factor that listed in the data set, and the way that they collect the data is they they give this definition of like if there's no one in the household who are like 14 years old or over, and they are like speak English or they speak English very well. So it's like defined by like people who are like adults and they are like not very well at speaking English. And I think most the are probably like immigrants, so they are like they don't have like that much like English speaking skills. And I
Right.
assume like they may cause like a lower like access to like financial resources.
So that makes sense. So it may be that you end up, depending on what you find, you want to change your terminology and not use the terminology linguistically isolated, but use non-English speaking or something like that. Because I think linguistically isolated suggests that there isn't anybody else around that speaks their language that they could talk to. And Paige says she thinks Spanish speaking only households is a good way to pare the project down. And Sue thinks that families that are non-English speaking may be a terminology you want to use. I think it's a fascinating project, and I suspect you're exactly right. It is more immigrants, and they're gonna, without being English speaking, they're going to have less access to resources. I was just suggesting you want to be very careful about the terminology you end up using.
Definitely, yeah. I just wonder if because the word linguistic isolation is what shows on the data set, so I wonder if I can just change to what I assume it means, like non-speaking English or like yeah.
Right. And they may have the metadata for your data set. I would look to see, we had a lecture before San Diego joined the class. We had a lecture in September by Steve Saylor, and you could look at the video on that. And he talks about, how to find the metadata on data sets in general. And usually that will tell you, it'll give a definition of where the terminology comes for each column of data. And so maybe well worth looking at exactly how are they defining that.
Okay, I will definitely check it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Very nice. Any questions? Okay, let's go back to Pittsburgh.
Go.
Okay, sounds good.
So for our project, we wanted to kind of look at the relationship between LGBTQ plus policies and respective general life satisfaction of the LGBTQ population per state in the US.
Okay.
And I mean, I feel like this is pretty important because analyzing that correlation between the two can help members of the LGBTQ community make informed choices as to where they'd like to live, because obviously that's a factor that they should consider. And also, I was thinking more in like the context of law. It can be important for lawmakers and politicians to look at because it kind of acts as a metric to check whether they are representing the interests of people that they are like elected to represent. And it can just kind of be used to hold like accountability amongst these politicians, just as like a way to like have a numerical value to show this is like the consequences of the laws and policies that you're putting in place.
Nice. So you found data sets here?
Yeah, so we hypothesized that there'll be a linear correlation, a positive one, between these state policies. And so in one of, we're doing our linear regression because the one data set has like a scoring metric for like how helpful or how just like anti they are for LGBTQ policy. So it kind of ranges from like a negative to a positive value, and it does it for each state. So we're going to use that, and then I believe it was called like the Cantrell scale, I think, but some kind of psychological study, I guess, that they did for mostly, it went out to majority of people that answered were like part of the LGBTQ community. So we'll be comparing those, and we hypothesize a linear correlation. So yeah, we'll have the scoring one, and then we also have this big survey with all of like, it has the Cantrell scale question, just like kind of asking like your how like your life satisfaction on a scale from like 1 to 10, and there's a bunch of other questions and data in there. And then so we'll clean out a lot of it because there's a lot of extra stuff, and we're also, the survey is more of like a census type of thing, and so it's divided by census divisions instead of like by each state. So it's not as big as the problem as we're running into last time with like the zip codes and the municipalities, but since like the states are very well defined and the census divisions are very well defined, but we will want to make sure that like the average score for each state's like policy score accurately represents like the states that are within it. So we'll run a z-test.
So the census area encompasses more than one state?
Yeah, like I believe there's a group of like California, Washington, Oregon, a couple of the states on that side, and most of the scores for those states are pretty similar. So like we'd expect for those states, like there wouldn't be any significant differences between the actual state score and the average score, but we are going to test that for each one, because there are some regions where some states have a really good policy, and then within that same division, a different state has really bad policy. So we want to make sure that we're not maybe using that division to,
or using a mean that's completely meaningless because no state has the mean.
yeah. And so then we'll be comparing that mean to the various answers on the survey to determine if there is a relationship.
Nice, nice. So I imagine because policies kind of happen by big region, by state, that this will work out pretty well. When you first started talking, I was worried that maybe rural areas would be very different than urban areas. But if you're looking at the relationship between how they're scoring and the state policy, then you may not have to worry about that so much.
Yeah, and I mean, we probably, depending on what our results are, we might do some kind of like post hoc analysis type of thing where maybe we'll include some categorical data from other questions in the study. Like, because I mean, you could have parents that are completely
not supportive
regardless of if the laws are supportive, and so there are like questions about that maybe we could include later in our project.
Nice. Any questions? Okay, let's have another Caldwell team.
We could go next.
Okay, who's this?
It should be Rizu and Shashwat.
Ah, here we go.
Yep. So for our project, we want to look into the workforce inclusivity in tech industries. So first we were thinking about looking at across different industry throughout US, but then we realized it would be too big of a data set. So we wanted to limit it to tech industry. And we're trying to look into data. We have data sets ranging back, I think, till 2014. So we want to see what has been the trend, if there's been increase in hiring trends in people who predominantly belong to minority groups. We're looking into different aspects such as the race, gender, and even sexual identity, and seeing if there's been increase in hiring trend. We also want to look into the pay disparity, if it exists. We want to see if there has been any difference, any like significant difference in the salary that people from different backgrounds have been receiving. And we also do want to include other variables that could have potentially impacted it, such as work experience, level of education attained. So we want to do a regression analysis to see if the disparity is caused specifically due to the background they're belonging to, or there are other factors such as their experience or the level of education that they've attained that significantly affects it. So for our hypothesis, we believe that there has been a significant increase in representation of minority groups that is including but not just limited to underrepresented racial, ethnic, gender, and socioeconomic backgrounds. So yeah, we were only focusing on United States. We do have 2 data sets so far. The first one is ranging back to 2014. It includes the top tech companies in United States, and it also has a percent division of either like male, female. There are also race division. We also have another data set that includes gender identities of people. And we're also looking for like an additional data set for the salary of different groups. We are trying to look into the US Equal Opportunity Commission to see if they have any relatable data sets. So we have one data set that we still need to find. For our analysis, we want to see, like I mentioned before, if there has been recent increase in the hiring trends for these kind of communities, and also to see if there are some other variables that are affecting it other than the backgrounds.
So right off the bat, my question would be, you said the diversity in tech company data set you have from Kaggle goes from 2014 to 2024, right? And
2018. We have 2000. Yeah.
I would worry because all of your whole hypothesis is about change. So there has to be you're asking about change in things and that there's been a significant or measurable increase in minority and reduced disparity in gender pay. But these are all questions about change. And I was worried that even if it was 2014 to 2024, that's only a 10-year period. It seemed like a short period to be looking for change. If it's 2018 to 2024, I really worry that it may be short for looking at change. Is there a way to get this kind of data that you would have a longer time period to look at, like maybe from 2000?
Yes, so that was the problem that we faced when we did find this data set on Kaggle. That's why we're looking into the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, because we believe that they have data sets that are ranging further back. So for right now, we are focused on receiving data sets that are way further back so that we can divide it on the base of decades, so we can see which decade had like the highest spike in hiring for minority groups and everything. So we're still working on finding an older data set.
Well, based on our experiences last night, we suggest you use ChatGPT.
We'll look into that.
Definitely give it a go. I was just beyond impressed. So I'm glad you're thinking about that issue also. Very nice. Okay, so San Francisco. Do we have another group in San Francisco? I think we do.
Yep, last group.
Okay. And who is this?
This is Justin Ho.
Oh, here we go. Very good.
Okay, so our project proposal will be on the impact of different types of financial aid on college completion rates.
Okay.
So our research question is, what types of financial aid have the greatest impact on college completion rates? And we want to determine if different types of financial aid, such as grants, loans, and work-study programs, have a significant influence on students' ability to complete college. And we will analyze how these financial support mechanisms impact graduation rates with a focus on needed-based and merit-based aid.
So some background, I think that this topic is important, especially for policymakers and, educational institutions, just because, the price of college is something that's always kind of been rising. And if we were able to kind of form some insight about the price of college and how students are, paying for it, maybe it could influence policies in the future when it comes to seeing how, like, students who receive more grants are able to focus more on their schoolwork and all that. So our hypothesis was that grants and scholarships specifically will have a more positive impact on college completion rates. That's because with loans and work-study programs, that type of aid that is, that you have to pay back is more taxing on, stress and academic achievement. And then we also have a couple of data sources right now. We need to find more. The first one is from NSC. It's pretty much just the completion percentages for different types of college, but kind of like public, private, and other ones as well. And then the next one was financial aid data. And with financial aid data, I think that we could find a lot more. We're going to try also looking through FAFSA as well. And yeah, there's a lot more resources. We need to find more. We kind of struggled finding data sets. So it's kind of just what we have right now.
use ChatGPT, and I bet ChatGPT will be awesome at this because there are a lot of data sets on college statistics. And so I think it'll be a fast way to identify a number. How are you going to look? Are you going to look at individual schools? Are you going to categorize the schools as in a different way or by state? How are you going to? There's a huge number of colleges.
Yeah, so we're specifically gonna be looking for the data that's just within the United States. I think that we're gonna try to group them just through the type of college that they are, like as in public schools, public 4 years, and then I know I saw some of the data and the data set had like public 2 years, and then there's privates as well.
But even public 4 years, there's an enormous number of schools, and if you look at private 4 years, there also is. And I wonder if you might want to look at kind of top tier schools. Because I think they're going to be different. I think if you look at schools that are not as well known, they often take much more local students. And plus, if students are going to school close to home, they may live at home. Their need for scholarships may be different. I think really carefully about how you divide the schools up, just because I think different kinds of schools get kids in very different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. So
Yeah,
we'll
I mean, you don't have to
look at
figure it
more.
out now, but we want to keep it in the back of your mind and try out a couple things.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our analysis, last time we used Python. This time we're just gonna use Excel. We're definitely just gonna do a lot of statistical analysis, whether it's regression. We just really want to try and make our focus about how we can visualize all of this data because there are a lot of factors.
Yeah.
And yeah, using Excel is pretty, that's kind of it. Yep.
Good. Well, I would say the majority of teams use Excel and Google Sheets. I mean, we certainly have high school teams that are more sophisticated, but when you look at the bulk of the high schools, it's really critical that all mentors be able to use Google Sheets and Excel. So I'm thrilled that we have a lot of people taking that strategy. Very nice.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so San Diego, I think we have at least one that we haven't heard from.
I can go with mine.
Okay, is this Brian?
Yes, this is Brian.
Okay. Okay.
So essentially, my project idea is I'm going to investigate the California wildfires that are present in the state, and I'll see how different areas, different counties in California respond to these wildfires. So I'll analyze like essentially how different communities, especially marginalized communities, receive different amounts of aid when in response to these fires. And so my research question is essentially, how does the impact of California wildfires disproportionately affect counties with historically marginalized populations, and how does this access to care vary between these counties? And I guess I wanted to like specifically take this topic because wildfires have obviously been a really major issue in California throughout the last 100 years or so. And I was also interested in doing something related to the environment and somehow tying it into this topic. So I guess the hypothesis for my research question is that I'm assuming that the regions where the fire burns for a longer duration of time or causes a greater amount of damage will generally receive less aid and I guess attention than other counties. And I suppose some data sources I'm using to answer this question is the California wildfire data from 2013 to 2020. This was a data set that I found while through browsing through Kaggle. And essentially this data set contains a bunch of information about each fire that has occurred in the state between 2013 and 2020. And it also includes a bunch of other statistics like how many people responded to these fires or how much water was used to take care of these fires and in general just how much resources are allocated to deal with these problems. And the second data set that I'll be using is it's essentially the demographic profiles of each county in California, and I got this from the employment development department in the state of California. And this essentially contains a bunch of information relating to demographics of each county. So that could be like the age distribution, the racial distribution, income distribution, and other statistics like that. But for this analysis, I will primarily be focusing on the racial distribution. So like the distribution of Asians, whites, African Americans, and other different minority groups. And I guess in terms of my analysis plan, similar to the other U60 groups, I'll be using Google spreadsheets to help perform data analysis. And this will include either cleaning the data, dealing with missing values because I looked at the wildfire data set and there's a significant amount of missing data. And alongside that, I will plan to create visualizations and potentially some regressions that will help, I guess, demonstrate the relationship between each of the variables and how much damage is done by the fires. And
Yeah.
I believe on page 2 it shows a bit more of what my analysis plan is. And yeah, I guess that's essentially it. I'll be using regression analysis, hypothesis testing, or analysis of variance to essentially see what is significant and what is not significant. And afterwards, I'll be creating data visualizations, and that's essentially it.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. I was born and raised in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and went to college at Berkeley. So I grew up worrying about wildfires and think about it a lot. I think I see you have data sets that I assume they're divided by county. I mean, wildfires are complex because they burn the way they burn. So they may cover multiple counties or they may be a portion of a county. And if the data set on the population is divided by county, you're going to have some issues of what percentage of the county experienced the wildfire. And the mean. The other difficult thing about California, especially where the wildfires are, I mean, a lot of them are in farming country, and farming is complex. The landowners have a lot of money, and they own the land and run the farm, but you have a huge immigrant community that works on the farm very frequently. And so if you're using county means, I'm just wondering how you'll really identify wildfires that occurred in a community that had lower resources versus wildfires that occur in a higher resource community. I guess wildfires that hit very populous areas. I mean, there was just one in Pasadena, very, very populous. Last year, there was one in what is it? On the coast in a city. Have you given some thought to this kind of the complexity of the population?
I think that's definitely a valid issue, and I think the one way that I'll attempt to address that is so the data set there, aside from the county that the fire was in, it also contains data about the exact location of it. So that includes the latitude and the longitude of the exact fire.
Good. Yeah.
So that might help narrow things down a bit more.
It'll help you narrow it for the fire. Then the question will be, how do you decide if they were under-resourced? Is that data all by county, or is it broken down a little more finely?
That's also broken down by county. So
Yeah, because some of the counties are huge. Yeah. Anyway, I just think you probably want to think about that issue because there's a lot of heterogeneity within each area.
yeah, definitely. I'll definitely have to give it some more thought and yeah.
Nice, very nice. Okay, so we have another Pittsburgh group, right? Okay. Okay, you want to go ahead?
So yeah, for project 2, based off, the focus was based off the first project. So the first project was about the POGO system and members and casuals.
You might say what POGO means because
Yeah.
not everybody's from Pittsburgh on this call.
So yeah, POGO is basically the metro system here. Or not the metro system, it's the Viking system, sorry. Metro system is the public transit. But the Viking system here is similar to New York. And it's not as popular right now because it is a new edition.
So it's bicycles that you can rent by the hour, basically, and they have them freely, well, not freely available, they have them available on kind of city streets. You can come up to a rack of bicycles and you can rent them by the hour. So that's what that is. Yeah.
So for our second project, the difference between this project and the other is we're considering the geographic cluster specifically and their socioeconomic variables. We're just trying to find the correlation between the two.
Nice, very nice.
So the problem here is that the POGO system, biking system here, doesn't really disperse its stations throughout Pittsburgh. And particularly in areas that aren't in the center or aren't downtown. And why is this important? It's because if you look directly at the POGO website, look at the About section, their whole goal is about diversity and extending their stations throughout Pittsburgh, especially in areas of marginalized communities.
Nice.
So our hypothesis is that there'll be a good correlation between popular bike share locations, locations with high income, low poverty, and that doesn't have colored communities. So yeah, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And then of course we can say the opposite, the converse of the good correlation of unpopular locations with high poverty, low income, and BIPOC dominant communities. I guess I can talk about the data.
Yeah.
We're using the same data from Project 1, just for the most popular stations and the locations. And then for the difference here, the new data is going to include again, the socioeconomic values here. And I guess it's also important to note that it's mainly by county. I couldn't really find the latitude or the longitude, but I might be able to find another data set for that.
All of Pittsburgh is in Allegheny County, so I bet it's divided more finely than by county, because otherwise everything would be in a single county.
I guess neighborhood, sorry.
By neighborhood, yeah. And so it's nice that this is from the Western Pennsylvania Data Resource Center, because if these data sets are not divided the same way, I mean, one would hope that they're divided by neighborhood, and the neighborhood definitions are the same in both these data sets, but you'll have to check that out. I guess my worry would be I guess you'll be able to look at neighborhoods that have bicycles and neighborhoods that don't, and you'll be able to answer this question. I think I agree with your hypothesis. It's very likely that they are in higher income and more educated neighborhoods. And so, and there's relatively few of them. So I guess you would be trying to come up with recommendations then for where the city could expand these that would really meet the needs of what their actual stated goals are to make them accessible to people who have low resources.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Definitely have some recommendations at the end.
Yeah, good.
So for the analysis plan, again, we'll use the same data from our initial project, but then we'll basically make a chi-square test for independence in Excel with the socioeconomic variables. And we'll also use another regression test, probably multivariable this time because we have multiple socioeconomic variables to explore the relationship specifically. And that YouTube link is just basically a tutorial on how to use 3D map Excel for applying geospatial data on Excel.
Yeah, that would be very nice. Very nice. Okay, very good. Is there a team that has not gone so far? Did we miss a team anywhere?
Yes, there's one from Caldwell.
Okay, is that Christian and Christopher?
That's correct. Yep.
I thought, excellent. Okay, go ahead.
Great. So if you remember from our last class, we discussed our topic was going to be related to affirmative action. And in investigating sort of the data sets that were available, we found that there weren't many that were publicly available that were kind of what we were looking for in that, looking for diversity statistics per college admissions before and after the most recent Supreme Court decision in 2023 that got rid of affirmative action that would have allowed race to be a quality that you could sort of search for, in applying for colleges. So all that to say, we ended up switching our topic And this time, our data set focused on New Jersey public universities and colleges, and how they compare with their commitment to diversity. What we aim to do is sort of investigate the diversity in admissions for these universities specifically. We have 30 in New Jersey.
Nice.
Right, and sort of just comparing that directly. So we have our research questions listed there as far as like over time has the range of time that we're looking to investigate would be from 2007 to present. And we have some data on that over time, basically. And then is there a difference between seeing diversity in public universities in terms of enrollment versus public community colleges? Is one more diverse than the other, and what could the factors be in that, i.e., cost, standards as far as admissions go, with SAT scores, GPA requirements, things like that. So that's sort of where we would direct our project. As far as why is this important, we kind of wanted to investigate the New Jersey side of things because we have that national measure that went as far as removing affirmative action. And so we sort of wanted to see how much that would affect New Jersey, if at all, and how that looks from our state's point of view. I believe, as we wrote in our hypothesis, that New Jersey is actually pretty committed to diversity. And so that doesn't seem like it would actually hinder the already the standard that New Jersey aims to take in terms of admissions. And so we believe that we're going to see an upward trend as far as diversity from 2007 to 2023. And so the data that's required there's publicly available New Jersey data that for every single every single public university and college has to release a profile, an institutional profile that gets published on the newjersey.gov website. And so what we intend to do is to go through the reports for these 30, compile them in an Excel spreadsheet, dividing them by year, right, with each tab on the spreadsheet being a year of the data, and then importing that data into Python and going from there as far as continuing our analysis.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you're going to need to have the data on one spreadsheet. I mean, it may be that you find it easier to organize it into individual spreadsheets, but if you want to compare over time, you've got to get it all into the same spreadsheet. So
true.
My guess would be it may well be worth putting it all in one spreadsheet to start with, but it's up to you. I
appreciate it.
Thought.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
We do want to monitor that trend over time.
Yeah, over the past 15 years, we want to see whether it's because as Chris mentioned, New Jersey has done a pretty good job overall in terms of diversifying population overall, but especially in education, the education sector. So even though our data is before affirmative action, when that was still a thing, we went to see the trend just over those years, and the which factors may have come into place.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, probably the ornery kid part of me, who wants to point out that if you had a good situation in New Jersey for all those years, that the Supreme Court really may actually have a big impact on you, because if you can't take into account a number of these factors anymore, but the state was doing a very good job and was taking into account those factors, it seems like you would, in fact, be impacted more.
Yeah, that does make sense. Although we really wouldn't be able to compare, since we wouldn't necessarily have the data post affirmative action
Right,
in New Jersey,
right.
but we can make that prediction, or based off our findings, prior, during, those years, maybe
Yeah.
it could be a substantial change, going forward. but
it would it'll be really interesting to see your analysis. And part of me wonders, do you want to just look at New Jersey, or would you be interested in comparing to a state that had much less attention on diversity? I don't know. I mean, maybe your focus appears to be on the different kinds of colleges, and is there a difference? And that's enough for your project. But sometimes when you're trying to kind of get your head around factors and how they influence things, it's good to look at extremes. It's up to you, though.
yeah, that is a great thought, to be considered. But like I think we wanted to gear it more towards New Jersey in terms of the different colleges as their own entities themselves, how the diversity per university and community college has progressed over time, so we could see if it's just this college that's doing something really good, or like which factor, what are they doing? If Chris, if you would want to elaborate, but that's kind of where we want
Yeah,
to.
if I could jump in there. You raise a good point, Dr. Cameron. One of the things that was kind of disheartening about abandoning the original project or view was that you'd be able to see nationally sort of the change, what change, if at all, such a national policy would have. And so what is interesting to us is potentially in us compiling this data that really isn't compiled. Like it's all on individual websites, and that's sort of been the problem that we kept running into, that if you wanted to find just pure data sets, that you'd have to actually compile it yourself based off of the publicly available information on each of these colleges' websites. So what I'm excited about is that our project could potentially be referred to later, maybe even 5 years down the line when we have more data post this decision, to sort of see how does what we observed in the trends leading up to this decision in 2023, if that trend continues or not. So I think we're doing like a preliminary work for researchers to come.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Are there any other teams that haven't talked about their proposal anywhere? Have we got everybody? I don't see anything in the chat. We've got everybody?
Is that like Steven Sahar raised his hand?
Oh. Who raised their hand? I didn't see that.
Steven Sahar?
Ah, okay.
Maybe it was something else. I'm not sure.
Let me look again. Did we have Adrian Lopez and Zen Jiang? I think we did. Oh, Stephen Sahar and Giovanna Fernando. Did you go? At Caldwell?
I think Caldwell is already done.
Caldwell's already. Oh, no. Stephen says they have not gone yet. Do you want to go, Stephen?
Oh, Stephen, I think has a audio issue. I see his chat message.
Ah. Oh, I see. You're having mic issues. Giovanna, this is a UCSD proposal. Giovanna, are you available? Let me just see if she's here. I don't think she's on. I'll just so that we've looked at everything, we can quickly look at this together. This is looking at student-teacher ratios across different school districts in San Diego, by Stephen and Giovanna. And the research question is, are there any discrepancies in the student-to-teacher ratio across different districts of different location types in the city, suburban, rural? I think I agree very much with your background that the student-teacher ratio is a critical factor in promoting educational equity and student success. So understanding this is important. Your hypothesis is that rural areas have a higher student-to-teacher ratio compared to cities and suburbs. I have no idea, but I think it's a really interesting question to ask. And you've found a data set, and I'm assuming because there's good education facility statistics available pretty much nationwide. We know how many kids are in classrooms. So it seems like this is something you would be able to look at very well. I'm just looking, you're looking in the San Diego area. I assume you're looking outside of the city itself so that you can get the rural area. It'd be interesting to know how you define the area you're looking at. Maybe if you want, you can put something in chat here. Looking at San Diego County. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So not just San Diego City, but San Diego County. And they're going to use the locale, the student teacher columns. They're going to analyze this in Excel, and they're going to compare the ratios in the various areas and create box plots, and then look at locations. And I assume you make some sort of a map, perhaps, as a visualization. So very nice. Thank you. Any other project we have missed? I think probably, let me just look quickly. Did we get Suman? We did, and Prelash, yeah. Okay, I think we've covered them. So you have a fair amount of time to work on your projects. And if you have questions as you're working on them, please reach out and let me know. Sometimes I'll know the answer to how to do something, but most of the time I will connect you to somebody who will be even more knowledgeable than I am. And certainly for statistical questions and analytical questions, we have the faculty member who taught the first 4 weeks of this class. He will again be present the evening that you are presenting. He's also very available, and you have his email address, and ways of contacting him are right in the Google Drive. So you should feel very much like you can reach out to him, or you can reach out to me and I can connect you. If you're having data set problems, definitely reach out and I will try to connect you to people who can answer those questions. You want to remember that when you give your presentations at the end, we are not doing posters this time. We're doing slide presentations. And for that reason, for the second half of tonight, I'm going to give you a lecture on how to put together a very good slide presentation, and I've put documents into this week's file folder on Google Drive that you can look at. There's a one-page sheet that summarizes things you should be thinking about for each part of your slide presentation. For those of you, I think in San Diego, who may not be here for the second half of tonight's class, I hope you'll be able to look at the video of this.